Seeman. Nice to see you all here, waiting for the last keynote of the day. I'm going to talk about changes, and I'm going to share you my personal road or my personal changes, personal story. But before that, I have to clarify one thing. You all probably remember that the first keynote speaker, Mart Noorma, he wanted you to write down a couple of things. You remember. What would you like to send to space, and how would you make a world a better place, right? And he asked you to use the page 127. Yeah? I also wrote down my things here, and my neighbor at the audience said, "Hey, Tiina, he's using your page." So basically, this is all used up. And after Mart ended his keynote, I went over and thanked him because the speech was really interesting. But I also mentioned that, hey, you used my page. So we made an agreement that you all can, and if you want to take some remarks, then you can use page 7. And this is okay, totally okay with him. So that's that. But now about changes. Changes, when you think about changes, when people think about changes, they usually, the first reaction, what it comes is fear, uncertainty, and the feeling that you would like to defend yourself. So the defense mode is pretty normal. And actually the reaction to the change, when you feel that you want to defend yourself, is pretty normal, because change represents the things that you don't know about, the things that are uncertain, the things that you are not familiar about. So that means that something is about to wreck your stable world. I myself, I'm also a normal human being, and I'm still struggling with the first reaction, or actually I'm letting it be, because I know that after this first reaction usually comes the clear mind, which actually allows me to think about what will happen really when this change comes along. And as you always know that, in a life there are two kind of changes, the ones that you can influence and the ones you can't. So in life you can't be always afraid of changes, because otherwise you are just afraid of living. And when the first reaction has passed, then you are able to think about the opportunities, the possibilities, what happens after. And then the normal mode comes along. Today I'm going to tell you about this personal journey in professional life and the changes I've made. I've drawn some things up here. So basically, when I summarize or generalize it, I made 3 kind of changes in my life. One of them is that at first I was a specialist, then I became a manager, then I was a specialist again, and then a manager again. So change of discipline, change of role is something that I've done, and as you see, once wasn't enough, I had to do it twice. Then I have changed the domain I was working with, or am currently working with. At first I was working at customer care, and then I thought I would like to work at IT. And I made the change. And the third line of changes is actually the companies that I've been working with. I think this is something that also affects your career, your choices, your growth. And this is something that I would like to talk about as well. But now the first change. I will be here, then it's maybe a little bit better. The first change is changing the role. When I started my professional career, I started as a specialist. This is usual. I believe that most of us have started as a specialist and not as a managers. I was working at EMT. I was customer care specialist, and after I finished my school, I just felt that I wanted to do something more. I was ready, I was eager, I wanted to influence the organization, I wanted to influence the processes, the ways that people are working. I also wanted to influence the people. So when I was 23, I was offered to be a manager of a customer care department. And I, of course, accepted the offer. I was a young, green, eager, of course, wanted to learn. But nevertheless, all of a sudden, I had a 70 to 80 people in my department. I had to accomplish the challenges. I had to take care of the problems that came from the market, but also the problems that came from the department. So at first it was quite frightening, I would say. But I'm not there to fail, as I said to myself, and I started up to change 3 Ps, if I would summarize it. Processes, people, and the products as well. I think working with those 3 Ps is just a simple generalization, but when you are a manager of a department or a company, then you most probably have to deal with all those dimensions. So I was a manager of this department 3 years, and then I thought that this era would end. What I mean by that is that I felt that I was doing good. I felt that I was doing fine. Everything went better. I had my chance to improve the organization. I had my chance to improve the ways that we worked. We changed the tools that people were working with, etc. But I was not completely satisfied. Then I took a little break. I was at home for 2 years. And then I went back to be a specialist, but on a different field. You know, when I was at home, then I went to study IT. And when coming back to work, I thought that this is something that I would like to work with further on. And I was asking my EMT, my current company that I was working with, that can we please make the change that I don't have to work in customer care anymore, because I wanted to work in another discipline. And I was offered to be a specialist in business applications department, and I took it. I didn't feel like it was awkward to change my position, although everybody was asking that what happened. How come that you were a manager of 80 people and now you are a specialist? For me, this was still a growing part, because the domain was changed and I wanted to do a completely different thing. But time passed, and the second time I was becoming from specialist to a manager soon arose. And the reasons were practically the same. I wanted to influence the company. I wanted to make things better. I wanted to influence also the products or the processes and the people that were working in the system or in the company. So this was my try both times when I became from specialist to a manager. The second change I made was changing the domain. I already mentioned that after I got back from home to work, then I changed my domain as well. The reasons behind it, the reason is actually pretty simple. I mean, for me, the information technology is a much more attractive domain than a customer care domain. Customer care, yes, this is important to the companies that have a lot of customers, that evaluate the customer relationship, of course. This needs to be taken care of. But I wanted to be in a place, in an organization where I actually can be a part of strategy for the future, be a part of creating new products, or be a part of creating new systems, for example. Be a part of greater change. And that's why I choose technology, because practically in every company nowadays, there's a need for the people who understand the business side, who understand the technology side, and can raise the company to a whole new level when bringing those two domains together. My first education is public administration, and my second education is system analyst. I graduated IT college, and there's a funny story about it, actually. When I was 22, I was working at a customer care, and I was a specialist there. And more and more, I got involved with the systems. And in EMT, there was this old lady, system analyst, who talked with passion about her work, what she was doing, how she was designing the systems, how she was designing the processes. And I got a taste of it. I was 22 then. And then I thought, why didn't I went to study IT? Why did I have to pick this public administration? But now I'm too old. I can't change anything. This was my thought when I was 22. When I was 28, at home with my 1-year-old son, then all of a sudden I thought, oh yeah, IT is for me and I'm going to study. So that obviously means that at age 22 I wasn't just ready for this change. It wasn't a matter of the age or anything else. I just wasn't mature enough to change my field. And I also put a question mark here, because who knows, right now I'm in IT and in software development, but who knows what happens in the future. As you all heard, the company I'm currently running, I'm going to liquidate it as well. So I'm going to be a liquidator, a terminator, like everybody is saying. Something new for me. But besides that, I would also like to run software development, because this is just an interesting thing to do. Changing the organizations. I also think that when you grow as a professional, it is wise to see different organizations. Yes, when you look at in very general level, they are all the same. Big corporations, requiring processes, the good people that are working there, and so on, and having customers and products, of course, and markets. But when you look at inside, there are different details because of the business area, because of the customers, because of the markets, and because of the products. So those three companies I work with are pretty different. First of all, EMT, Estonians probably do know this company. This is the largest telco company in Estonia. This gave me my starting point as a professional. This company has helped me much, and also being long enough in this company helped me to realize that 10 years or 12, how much I was there, is too long to be in one company. I felt that I needed a change a little bit frequently, or I needed a change actually earlier than I left this company. But Estonian Energy is totally different. A monopoly, it was a monopoly at the time when I entered this company, and when I entered this company, it looked like a total mess, because the company was changing and preparing itself to become from a monopoly to a free market organization. That meant that all the business processes, all the systems, all the technological services, all these products, and even somewhere people needed to change. So this was an interesting era to me because I found out that being in the middle of changes, being in the middle of crisis, being in the middle of all this fuss that come with this huge turnaround in the company, inside of the company, is actually the thing that I like to do. So I think from this company forward, I have been looking at the challenges that are tied with the change management, and not only tied with the change management in IT definition, but change management in the organization. Meaning that besides changing the systems, changing the processes, you also have to change people and their mindset, their ways of working. And this is something I became to enjoy. Now, Bang & Olufsen is an international brand. I've been working there for 2 years, almost. And when I entered this company, my assignment was to make this Estonian company more integrated to a mother company. But the change actually becomes from yourself. How can you think that your world will get better when you don't change? When you don't change the context you are living or working with, when you don't change the companies that you're working with, when you don't change your roles, when you actually yourself don't want to do anything better. How can you think that the world will become a better place? And I think this should be a thing that every person should keep in mind. Nobody else can do the world a better place for you. Yourself, you can do it. And change before you have to. Because in life you see a lot of changes that you are not on a driver's seat. But you can also prevent some of them. If you are proactive enough, if you think that you can do the changes before you have to do some of the things in another way that you are forced to, just grab the driving seat and take the changes yourself. And the most important thing is that pay attention to your dreams. I think the grown-ups usually forget to dream. But how can you dream of a better life when you don't dream at all? Or how can you make your life better when you don't dream at all? So I think this is the key element to every grown-up as well. Not only for kids that they have to dream, but grown-ups. And actually I do have an assignment for you, and you can use this page 7. And the assignment right now is that please picture yourself as a 80 years old person, man or a woman. You are giving a speech in your birthday party, and you are talking about the things that you have accomplished, you have done, you have succeeded. What are those things? 3 important things that you have done in your life. Just take a minute and write those things down. Yes, you are 80. Yes, that is possible. 80. 80. 80. 80. So did you understand the meaning of this exercise? What it gives to you? The perspective. Are those things that you are currently right now doing tied to your perspective? Or are you doing completely different things that you would actually like to accomplish in your life?
What if I've already done them?
Oh, that's good.
Should I die away?
Would you like to? Then think of other things. You have a life ahead of you. There are a lot of more things that you can do. Isn't there? Yeah. That wasn't so convincing. But even if you are on a right track, you can always assure yourself that, yes, I'm on a right track and I want to move forward in this path till I'm old. That's okay too. So, one graph that you always find when people are talking about changes, whether it is change in organization or whether it is change in somewhere else, that you usually tend to fight with this change. I mean, first of all, there comes a denial, then anger, then crisis, then depression, and then everything else. So basically, the more you fight with a change, the less you get. The quicker you accept the change, the easier your life is actually. So yet there are changes that you can influence. There are changes that you can change. You can change the changes as well. But when a situation arises, then it's probably the wisest thing to make a peace with this and move forward, not to fight, not to go into crisis, not to go into depression and confusion. Oh, this is perfectly normal that you do that. But the more you prolong this state and the more you wait for this acceptance to happen, the more difficult you make your life. And there are a couple of things that I just would like to recommend you when you make the changes in your life, or the changes happen in your life. First of all, you have to be consistent, because otherwise you will just lose track. If you are not consistent, then the changes will most probably will not happen if they are tied to your decision and your willpower. You also have to be patient, because important changes take time. They take time that you have to kind of mature emotionally and be ready in your mind. For example, I described myself as a person in years 10 to 2, and I wasn't ready to go to IT, but later on I was ready. I was just patient enough and listened to myself afterwards. You also have to be creative, because when life gives you enough trouble, you would call it a trouble when you see a change, then be creative. You can also turn your angle, your viewpoint to this situation that had happened. For example, me, I'm currently looking for a new job. This is not an advertisement, but this has been, I think, the most exciting time of my career so far, because I choose to connect a lot of people. I choose to network. I choose to not cry under the table because I lost my job. I choose to move forward. Yes, of course, at the beginning I did all those anger and crisis and depression things. But then I thought, this doesn't help me. And flexible, of course, because if you don't take into account the things that happen in the middle of your change, then you just don't succeed with the change. And the only change that is successful is the one that you have actually embraced, like the blue guy here. All the other things that you have rejected, denied, hated, and been afraid of, they don't succeed. The only thing that actually happens in your life, The only change that will happen in your life is the one that you have accepted and embraced. And I have accepted that I have to liquidate the company, for example, and embrace the fact and move forward. One other thing that people nowadays are doing is they are acting on a autopilot mode. They are not aware of their doings. For example, they are reading their emails, they are chatting on the internet, looking on the Facebook, instead of actually being aware of what is happening currently right now. And my suggestion is that when you are making a change in your life, then you have to focus. You have to be aware of what you are doing. Because otherwise you will just read your mails and emails and then Facebook chats and not actually accomplishing the change. So be aware of the world and how it reacts to your change. But nevertheless, this was a theory. In real life, when you are in this situation that you get to choose whether it is a blue bill and you forget everything, or whether it is a red bill and you will go to a rabbit hole, then you are afraid, of course. But this is a normal reaction, I already told you. This is perfectly normal. Just think with a clear head, try to look above the fear, and then you will see what you have to do, whether to take the blue or red bill and move forward. This is life. Keep it calm and change the world. And this is all. Thank you.
So here we go with the question assurance. I'm sure you have loads of questions to Tiina.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. I just wonder, where do you find the time to dream?
I think this is all a matter of prioritization. Because I used to think that I don't have time for running, but I made time for running. So I think this is a thing with dreaming. You just have to find the time. Instead of scrolling down your Facebook feed or anything else, you just take a time for yourself and dream. Sounds easy, doesn't it?
You said that 12 years was way too much before you changed from EMT. What more specifically was the reason why it was way too long time? What was it that made it way too much time until it changed? So what made you feel like you should have changed earlier, and why didn't you?
Mm-hmm. I think I was afraid of change. Then also when I went back to work within another domain, I changed to IT in EMT already. Then I felt that it was a little bit safer for me to go back to the company that I already know. Because I had a little son at home, I also had a studies in the middle. I was in the middle of my studies, and then I had to work. So I thought that I can't change all the things together. And I left the company the same. This was my choice. Thanks.
I'm wondering about, I like the slide where you show the curve of going through the initial phase of being very anxious and resisting to the change, and then that curve goes and you recover from this crisis, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, how did you do it actually? So if you're facing, not specifically in details, but when you are recovering from the crisis and you're going to the positive way, what things that helped you to overcome that state, I guess state of, you mentioned losing a job or something like that. So which things helped you, what motivated you, and how do you have some tips to share on how to?
Mm-hmm. Good question. I think for myself, what helps me through this depression and crisis is usually something that I change in my head. the way I think about the situation and the way I feel about the situation. And also the people that surround you. In this graph, especially in this first half of this graph, I think this is necessary that you surround yourself with the people that actually help you, not bring you down or whine with you or cry with you, but those people who can actually help you calm down or think about the future or just be there for you. But work with yourself is also important, because the things that you have to do is actually here. Thanks.
My question. So, since you're now the liquidator, terminator, something, it's not just about your life that's changing.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people whose life you're kind of changing. You're involved in a big change of, get your get out from the company, do something else. So, has this? Sorry about my French. How has this changed your views on the change, like the scale? Did you see that your views on change scaled with this new, adventure, the Terminator one?
So the question is, how do I feel if I have to change other people's lives as well? Mm-hmm. It happens.
No emotions?
No, there are emotions. Of course, there are emotions, because when we're talking about the company that I'm going to liquidate, there are a bunch of good people who have been working with the company and who are passionate about it. But I think for me, to be brutally honest, the change is a little bit easier because I am not the one who made the decision. I'm here just a messenger, and I can help them with to cope with this change, and this is basically all I can do. But if I was an owner of the company, then the responsibility would lie on me totally, and this I think would be a bigger burden for me.
So you're offering psychological services until it's all over?
Yeah, I've done that. Yeah.
I have also a question right here. Hi. So how to know when is the right time to do the change or to accept the change? That if you're still wondering about it, does it mean that this is not the time yet when you should do that, like you were at 22? So how to know that now, yes, this is the correct time?
Oh, it's such a hard question. I think this is very personal. On one hand, it depends only of you. When do you make those changes? But on the other hand, you are not isolated from the others and from the world. So you should see if you have enough energy and the possibility to focus on your change. Because if you are, for example, doing the changes in a lot of areas, changing your career, your current job, your, home, husband, having a kid, or anything else, or friends and hobbies and everything, then I would recommend that half of your life, at least, would be stable. Then you have you had the energy to focus on the other half that is changing. And I also would recommend that if you are in the middle of the decisions, that you could search some help from professionals. I mean, career counseling is actually the thing that is in Estonia as well. I've actually learned it and done it myself, in myself and others as well. So there are a couple of things that you need to think about. And when the answer is yes, then move forward.
I was a little bothered about the three things that you asked to figure out. What would be your advice on people who have found true happiness? Like they have managed to succeed so well that all growth after that seems quite small, measly, and they don't want to do that anymore.
What is the success in this criteria?
Oh, well, I put my baby, my wife, and my company.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I could get a second wife or
How about second kid and a second company?
yeah.
That is much safer.
I was getting an excuse for well, no, but yeah, if because at some point of our lives we come to a point where we don't want to grow anymore. We just wait for the Grim Reaper.
That's
and
interesting.
Yeah. So what would be your advice for those people who don't want to grow?
Then don't grow.
Yeah.
But I haven't reached this point myself, so I actually can't recommend anything, because I'm restless as a person. So that means that I usually get bored and then want to do something else. So yeah, this is a totally new mindset for me. Yeah. Sorry. But interesting to know. There are people that are totally satisfied. Okay.
Changes also involve decisions, and some of the decisions are very, very difficult, like changing a job. What's the right moment? You're in the middle of two good options, for example, but difficult ones. How would you have some techniques that you use? How to make the really difficult decisions, like what kind of path to take?
In professional life, not changing the wives, right? Yeah.
So it's like, for example, changing a job. Like
Changing a job.
Right, I have a very good job, but there's another interesting challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Which way to go? Like, how did
this
you come to
actually-
a mind?
This is actually very much tied up with the question I had from there. So if you have enough opportunities to grow in your current job, in your current company, and you're satisfied, and you don't want to do the change, then the answer is don't do it. But you don't know if you want to, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. If people don't know what they do want to do, then maybe this is not the time to make the change. Because all my changes that I referred here have suddenly just pop up in my mind, and I know that I'm going to do this. Of course, later on I've thought that, oh, this was stupid, this is too hard, but there's no turning back anymore. But the decisions, in my case, they come pretty easily. This could mean that in my subconscious I thought about this change for 6 years, from age 22 to age 28, right? But when the time is right, then the decision is there as well, in my case. In other cases, I would just again recommend this career counseling. This is pretty interesting. This makes you think about what are the values that you need, or you need as a when you're working in the company. What are the values in this company, and what you prefer in your job and in your company?
Hi. So my question is partially covered by Raimon's question. What you want to say is, like, humans as a species are pretty inert. Like, it's safer to stay in the current situation, even though the current situation is bad, than to make a change, because change means instability, insecurity, and current situation, even though it's bad, it's stable. So from my own personal experience and from experience of people I interact with, the hardest thing about the change is the first step, the decision to go from this inert state into a moving state. After that, everything goes far easier. What is, since you did so many changes in relatively short time, apparently you don't have that big of an issue with the initial step. What is your advice, like how can people make this initial step easier? Because definitely we need like more benefit of a doubt or more points on the changing part because of our own inert nature from within. So how to do that? Like what is advice on the initial step?
Sometimes you just have to take a leap of faith, and the trust part comes later. Basically, this is the way I see life, that you have to trust your own decisions, you have to trust life, or otherwise it's pretty difficult to live. For me, yeah, I've done a couple of changes, but for me the decision-making part comes like that. Made, done, move forward. But I'm a quick person, so that means that those people who are not like me, quick and emotional and also rational, but complex, it might be a little bit scary. But I would just recommend to take the leap of faith. When you see that there might be something good, then go on and try it. But the responsibility part comes with the freedom as well, and the decisions. So you have to be aware what could happen after the change. And if you are aware of it, for example, if I change the company, then probably will happen this and this and this, then you are actually prepared for the change and the consequences. I hope that answered somewhat.
Hi. So I'm kind of in the middle of a change myself right now, and I'm looking at the graph.
So where are you?
I'm in acceptance, but and also in confusion. And I haven't felt denial or anger or depression. What's wrong with me?
You're a human being.
Ah. So this is for robots?
No, basically this is just a simplification of the mind, of the person's mind, because in life this is not that easy, and you get the doubts even when you have reached your new confidence. It also is tied up with your personality and your self-esteem and everything. So nothing is wrong with you. Everything is fine.
That's what we hope anyway.
Certified.
Final question? Well, I got some very interesting points here from the Q&A part, at least as when you're happy with your love life, then try a new wife. Maybe it will go better.
That was not my advice.
But exactly, that wasn't your advice.
No.
So take the other advice. So thank you, Tiina, for a nice keynote.